Following on from our epic day with 7 Motorsports at Blyton Park driving a real race car, I thought you guys would like to know a little bit more in depth as to the differences between the experience of driving a real race car and the experience of driving simulated race cars. What I say in this video might surprise you. Okay, let's just get straight into it, and the biggest difference between real life and your sim rig or even wheel on a desk at home, and that is the fact that real life is expensive. Even if you ignore the cost of getting a car to the track, the time of the people at the track and getting yourself to the location, even if you ignore all that, the potential for whoops, I've just made a little mistake and oh no, that's hundreds of pounds, if not multiple thousands of pounds worth of damage, does play on your mind a little bit. Lee from 7 Motorsports was very clear in saying, oh, don't worry about it, you can't do that much damage. But one of my life philosophies has always been, if you are using someone else's equipment, if you can't afford to replace it, you probably shouldn't be using it. I kind of broke my rules in order to do this, but, you know, ultimately, I think if you're going to do real-world motorsport properly, you either have to not care about making people hate you, or you just have to be rich enough that that cost concern is not even a factor, because that will definitely hold you back a little bit. So that kind of moves us on to the second point, with another big difference being the sort of stakes of things obviously being higher. It's like the difference between playing poker with play money versus playing in a casino. It's a little bit different. You can lose all your play money, but you know, when you're in a casino with real money, it can change how you play until you've got a huge bankroll and you don't need to worry about that component. Weirdly, despite you'd think, oh, the stakes of risk to your own life being higher, I actually felt really safe in this. Like, you've got a roll cage around you, the car does exactly what you'd expect. I'm going to talk more about this later, but it was exactly like what I'd expect from my experience of sim racing, if not easier from a basic driving perspective, but I'll talk about that later because it's quite interesting. But yeah, no, this felt so safe. I didn't feel any nerves from the speed and the movement of the car and what the car was going to do. But I feel way on edge from the danger of mountain biking, for example, because you know, if you fall off a mountain bike, it's going to bloody hurt. And on a mountain bike, you can fall off like kind of spontaneously. It's not always totally in your control, especially when I'm riding. But everything in this car, it all felt in my control. I'm sure at the moment that I get in a race car and crash, that will all change and my framework will be destroyed. In fact, on this day, the biggest fear factor was when we were driving in the road car, learning the track, and there were other cars on the track with us, some Formula cars, WRC, Ginetta, a McLaren. And you know, that was more nerve-wracking because it's just something that's out of your control, really. You don't know what other people are going to do. Also, most of the traffic was when I was driving around in a road car, and I have to say I felt a lot more on edge in the road car, mostly because it was less responsive of also the traffic there, but also you don't have a roll cage. Like, you just feel so safe in a race car with a roll cage. Road car, I just feel like I'm going to die. I don't trust road cars. Give me a roll cage and I'm happy. So in terms of the actual visual experience and the view from the cockpit and everything, I have to say it was exactly like driving in VR. I can't believe how close virtual reality is to the real deal. Unbelievable. In real life, you've got a wider field of view and you still have a better perception of speed. But then at the same time, in real life, you know, there was like, you've got there's like shimmer coming off the windscreen, like lens flares off the visor. There's a lot of gubbins adding to a lot of noise of the visual clarity of what you're seeing in real life out of the cockpit, along with you bouncing around and moving quite a bit more than what you typically have in a simulator. Wider horizontal field of view compared to a VR headset, but the actual sat in the cockpit experience looking forwards was so close to VR. It's incredible. I can't believe how good VR is. And before anyone complains about the comfort of VR, which is why people don't use VR, bloody hell, I was cooking in this car in real life. I mean, it was a hot day. For the UK, it was like 28. And in this car, we were wearing obviously a fire suit and a helmet and everything. Oh man, I'm not designed for this kind of for warmth whilst wearing clothing. If it's this hot normally, this is me in the sea, you know, with a nice breeze kind of weather. I'm fine with water around me, but it was like this Saudi Arabian desert. Well, from my perspective, I'm too used to being rained on. But, you know, if you're going to complain about VR comfort, go and get in a bloody race car for a few laps on a hot day and you'll change your mind. You'll be like, oh, VR's heavenly. But yeah, the heat was really getting to me, combined with everything else. Like, it was just such a new experience. I was finding it quite hard to just focus on stuff. But fortunately, let's talk a little bit about the handling. And as I say, it was surprisingly close to the driving simulators, if not easier in some ways and harder in others. So the way that the real car was easier than a driving simulator is that the G-forces through your body really inform you as to what the tyres are going to do, and the range of those forces give you a huge margin of you knowing that you're getting towards the limit, you're on the limit, and then you're over the limit. And with this car being front wheel drive car, if you go over the limit on the turning, it just understeers a little bit, or if you push too hard on the brake, you understeer a little bit. Nice. This is a really good car for a noob like myself. You know, on the race car scale of things, it's a very tame car. So ultimately, the fundamental driving, like the just getting the car around the track at a basic level and knowing what you're doing and what you need to do to drive better, that is so obvious, so clear. It's just on another level of easiness compared to a driving simulator, like almost Simcade. Where you can tell that real driving is much harder than the simulators is, despite having that awareness and knowing what you need to do, like from the G-force and communication, actually holding it in that zone and maximising that, along with all the noise of you bumping around and the car being a lot more sort of agitated than driving simulators, and a little bit actually more immediate. Despite being more progressive, it was also more immediate and more responsive than a simulator. So the actually getting it in that zone on the limit and actually driving it very quickly, I think is actually quite a lot harder in real life than it is in a simulator. Like in a simulator, it's kind of like you hit there's almost a binary point of, well, that's that corner perfect, you've done that apex, you've done that line, that's near perfect. Assetto Corsa, I have to say, is probably the only simulator where that's less the case. It has more of that sort of smooth curve at the limit to it, whereas the other driving simulators just maybe race room a little bit actually, and some cars in R-Factor too, but all around in Assetto Corsa, its time model captures the best this sense of there's a limit zone that you want to try and hold the car in, and it's very hard to do that as optimal as possible. But even in real life, even compared to Assetto Corsa, it's like AC times 2 in terms of how much play there is at the limit. But I you know, as I say, I think there's more margin. If you're a skilled driver in reality, there's more that you can do. There's more opportunity in reality. It comes across. There's more opportunity for you to exploit if you're a skilled driver. Whereas in a simulator, you sort of hit a wall of what you can exploit. Obviously, you know, in reality, there's going to be huge variability depending on the tyres you've got. This was with racing tyres on this vehicle, but, you know, it's not a Formula 1 car with Formula 1 wheels. So, you know, there's only so much you can sort of draw in terms of direct parallels, because tyres make such a difference with cars. But in a sort of overview sense of it, I just can't believe how close Assetto Corsa is to capturing the general essence of driving a real race car. If I was going to go out, if someone's like, okay, we're going to offer you a drive in another car, please, at Brands Hatch in a Radical SR3, yes, thank you, I would be in Assetto Corsa training on that. Maybe a little bit of R-Factor 2, but Assetto Corsa, I'd be like, right, AC, VR headset, that's it, that's going to prep me up just fine. And that moves us on to force feedback, the best, most exciting topic that women get aroused by. So I want to do a separate video on this because, well, you know, extraordinary. But I will say, in the real car, I didn't feel that much through the steering wheel in this real car, both the road car and the race car, which is my experience with go-karts and the Honda Jazz and what other crappy road cars I've driven. you don't feel much with the steering wheel, but you feel a lot through the G-forces. And as I said earlier, that range of force and that communication, that is crucial, absolutely crucial to feeling confident in the car, what it's going to do, what you need to do. That range of G-forces is the key thing. And even if the wheel in the car doesn't tell you that much, what you feel for your body does. So, again, I know I'm just sound like an AC fanboy, but this is just the case. AC gives you that feel through the steering wheel. It's the closest thing to the G-forces, and you need that to be able to drive properly. And if you don't have a motion rig, well, how are you going to feel it? But what I will say though, the one thing that really massively stood out in the real car compared to a sim rig, regardless of the force feedback and everything, is on the brakes. You can really clearly feel the sort of forwards to backwards grip that the tyres have got to offer. So when you get on the brake and you're approaching the point at where the wheels will start to lock up, or if you're braking hard, or if you can brake harder or not, in a driving simulator, you gauge that you kind of learn the amount of pressure that you need to apply onto the brake pedal, and you learn the feel of the brake pedal through your foot. As a reference for how hard you're braking, and then you kind of line that up a little bit off the force feedback in some sims that give you a bit of force feedback for braking, but in real life obviously you feel the whole thing through your body. And the closest thing on a simulator that's somewhat close to that, I would say, is the seatbelt tensioner rigs. If you've ever used one of them, the seatbelt's tension on you as you get on the brakes. But the downside with those is that they're great for the initial getting on and the pushing against you, but they don't modulate fast enough. In a real race car and a real road car, but more so in the race car because the brakes are better and the car slows down quicker, when you get on the brake really hard and you modulate it, it's like the lateral G-force is varying, but it's obviously in the other direction, and it's very quick and very responsive. So you can immediately tell, you're like, oh, I can push the brake more. Oh, I need to come off it. I can get on it more. You can, despite the fact that you're bouncing all over the place and all this random crap's happening, you can immediately feel what the brake's doing, what the tyres do, and if it can give you more, or if you're going to run out very quickly. You know, the point where you suddenly understeer, that can be a little bit vague, but there's a lead up to it. You've got like a huge range of G-forces, basically just all just G-forces in all the different directions, and having that range allows you to then very quickly build a framework in your head for, oh, this car can take that many G's effectively in that direction with that amount of steering input, or with this going on, with that going on. So it just, you know, that is what makes it so addictive. I think this is what makes motorsport particularly so addictive, because it's really obvious that you're shit. And I felt awful in this. I was doing terrible, and but it was like, oh, I know why I'm doing terrible, and that makes it addictive. That makes you want to do more of it. It makes you want to get better at it. It's a quite fundamental game mechanic, really, in that the best video games are intuitive initially, let you know, make it obvious what you're doing wrong and what you need to do better, and then have a near infinite depth in terms of how much you can improve, and are very hard to do it perfectly. And that is what driving a real car is. It's like the perfect video game that you can't afford. But, you know, it was absolutely amazing. And lastly, before I wrap this video up, we've got to mention the sound. I mean, you know, video games have been improving. I have to say, I think Dirt Rally, the Codemasters games, have the best overall sound. I feel like some other games that overdo it a little bit or get a bit distorted, whereas Dirt, it sounds nice and in tune. But the sound of the real car, God, it was so good. It was so good. I just need this. I'm just going to listen to this onboard. The onboard doesn't capture it. You need like 3D headphones with a microphone on the exhaust pipe, blasting it into your eardrums. Just really satisfying, with the sound also corresponding exactly to what you're doing, the tyres skidding and everything. It was a right immersive experience. It was well good. So, yeah, you know, guys, let me know in the comments what you would like to know, if I've missed anything and anything I need to cover. I am going to do more talking about force feedback in another video, because this is a very important topic, close to my heart and not close to anyone else's. But have to say again, monumental thanks to Seven Motorsports for making this day possible. I don't deserve this. I don't know who watches my YouTube channel and goes, right, yeah, that seems like a good guy to put in our race car. He deserves that. Absolutely bonkers. But, well, the world is definitely a totally mad place. I'm going to have a cup of tea. You guys should all have a cup of tea. But until the next video, thank you for watching. Subscribe and like if you want to. And goodbye, everyone. Oh, he's back again. If you haven't yet, check out the previous video where I talk about what happened for the full day we were with Seven Motorsports. Or check out some of our simulator content by clicking on the simulator playlist that we've got. Bye.